It was relatively early in the morning, probably no later than 7 a.m. The sky was gradually becoming tinted orange by the sun over the mountainous horizon. The family and I had just begun our hours-long trip from Salt Lake County, Utah to Humboldt County, California. On the search for a rest stop before we make our way to Nevada, we entered this mysterious parking lot. It looked exactly like the one from my former high school just before they remodeled it. As we entered the parking lot, the clear blue-orange tinted sky immediately faded to gray, almost like if the world had immediately fallen into an apocalyptic state. Along the sidewalk was an entire row of outdoor bathrooms, just like the ones you would expect to encounter in the middle of the desert, which each have their own door. But something about them was very off. They were obviously abandoned, given that they certainly weren't being managed anymore. So there were flies all over the place. The walls were covered in all kinds of nasty residue, ranging from obvious fecal matter to urine, as well as mold and other residue that was difficult to make out. All warm in color, ranging from red to almost black to brown to yellow and yellow ochre. Just any color you could imagine residue to be that was splattered on a wall in a mismanaged bathroom. It was beyond disgusting. Clearly, no one had been there in ages. Right next to each toilet was a blue bathtub. One of the stalls right in front of me was for some reason attracting the most flies. On the road in front of it was a carpet being grazed upon by giant maggots. My suspicion grows, and I begin to encounter a putrid smell like no other. However, I recognize it somehow. As I walked closer towards the open stall, it wasn't long before I noticed a head of gray hair sticking up, the sockets where human eyes used to dwell, peering back at me from a 3/4 angle in the bathtub of the stall. Skin wilted to the bone, yellow and brown with a luster replicating the texture of plastic or rotted meat. A path of dry blood on the floor, darkened from years of its presence, surprisingly left untouched by liquid substances of any kind. I didn't dare step directly into that stall, for I wasn't planning on contracting a disease of any sort. That corpse had certainly been there for many years. My condolences to whomever that was and their family. But what frightened me wasn't the encounter of a dead fellow human. What really sent chills up my spine was how it must have gotten there in the first place. I turn around 180 degrees and notice what looks to be more human remains towards the fence which borders the canal. I decide to walk over to it. The bones from an old but well-preserved human torso. Everything from the ribs to the spine to the pelvis, but no limbs nor skull included. To the right of me lies another one less complete, just 30 feet away, only lacking the pelvis. I head back over to my car to put on a KN95 mask, which I've had packed since the COVID-19 pandemic, and then I walked back into the stall where the first body was for a closer look. The head was completely detached. No human could ever complete the process of a self-decapitation with a stable handheld object. This wasn't a suicide. It was a murder. I grew more frightened as more questions were raised. Is the killer still around today? If they'd been caught by now, I would think this corpse and the other remains outside would have been removed. Unless maybe this killer had other victims and these particular individuals just were never found during investigation. Whatever the case may have been, I just know I probably shouldn't ever visit this location ever again.